Welcome. This is Ayana Lahi, and I am so very, very happy that you're here with me today. In this week's episode of Be One, Be You, we are diving into the theme of healing a man's grief. Grief runs deep in the masculine psyche, deep within inside of yourself, in the place that felt as though who you really were could not really exist. There are expectations and demands that are put upon young boys that are different than girls. And there is a stripping away that happens as a boy moves into malehood that is a unique and powerful process that is needed to be honored and supported from men and women. To change the world, we have to pay attention to and give space for the grief within a boy, the grief within a man to heal. This grief is unique and different for each man. When you probe into your heart with the laser beam of love, you discover that there is an ache. It can actually be a pain sometimes that happens in your chest. It is the constriction from being wounded through the passing down from your father to yourself, from his father to him, his father's father to your father's father to you. The lineage of the unlived true self, the self trying to prove itself to be the definition of a man that is the unspoken definition. And in these times of great radical change, boys, teens, young men are awakening to the fullness, the ripeness, the expansion, and the depth of who they really are. And it's different than the image that we still experience in our life in the news, in the media, online, the man who has it together. And in that false perception of oneself, one splits off from the soul, from the spark of life that is your eternal self. Eternal meaning, hey, it's always here. And it just shifts into expressing itself in different ways, in different forms, from lifetime to lifetime. But that original masculine energy is a spark. It's a divine, sacred light. And that light is connected right into infinite intelligence, or God. Your masculine is the all-supportive energy. It's the embracer. It is the prosperer. It wants all life to prosper, all people to prosper. It wants to see things grow. The feminine is the igniter. It ignites life into action. The masculine puts it into form. So how you structure your own masculine energies is really important. The traditional way over the last many hundreds of years at this point, is to overstructure the masculine to create a system, a structure. It's an overstructuring of a system that comes from the mind that separates itself from the source. And it's happened through political, religious, social structures of expectations of how you're supposed to show up. So in that showing up in the structure that's constricting to your life force energies, taught, for instance, not to be too big, too expressive, too emotional, and to use sex as a way to release that stress of dealing with living in the box that you're told to live in, the box that restricts the power of your feminine. The feminine, we're not putting the feminine in a box either. The feminine not meaning that you're wearing makeup or that, you're wearing a skirt. The feminine, when you really know the feminine, it is the core creation power that creates life on this planet. It moves through you. And when you allow it to move up from the earth, from the core of the earth, as its infinite light, white light, blue light, gold light, are its most common forms of showing itself to you, you call it up from the core of the earth and you allow it to come up through your feet, your calves, your knees, your thighs, into the space between your pubic bone and tailbone. The ignition of the primal life energy will open your root center and will first reveal your fear, the fear of your own power. And the male psyche, meaning the imprint within your mind, is trained to push down that life force. And in that pushing it down is what creates anger. And then the next layer is you being told as a boy, if this happened for you, to not cry, not show that emotion, to not be connected to that source of life energy because it creates you to be too joyful, too free, and connects you to a power that is not part of that masculine image, and by having to push all that down creates grief. The grief of the loss of your primal connection, and it creates the anger. And the very most extreme form of expression of that repressed anger and grief is the violence that we are seeing with gun shootings all over the world, and in particular the United States. The United States has its roots in very strong Native American medicine that lived and lives in accordance with the laws of the earth, working, living, being in harmony with the earth. And by shutting down that current within the body has created a split between the mind and the body, and how we treat the circumstances, situations of the earth, from fuel crisis to housing crisis to climate crisis to water crisis. It's all connected. The grief that is created in your body growing up through the childhood boy experiences and being told you can't be that, do that, say that, express that. The non-grief that is given to a boy as he grows up and through his teenhood, who is told you can do this, you can be this, you can appropriately say this and speak from your heart, be grounded through your legs, through your feet into the earth. Speak your truth, live in connection with the earth. That is part of the new future masculine. The new future masculine has transformed his grief into love, into a love that is active, that love that listens, that visions the new, that embodies the mind being clear of its pain, the mind being tuned to the structure of the universe, which is creative thinking. Creative thinking being tapped into the source that's stronger than the mind, saying no to you and getting out of the cycles of grief. As we experience a force of false power on the planet that creates pharmaceuticals and medicines and ways of thinking and political controls and takeovers and the sublimation of the feminine power force in men and women, as we experience it and choose to not get caught up in our own despairs and thoughts of, I really can't do this. I really can't move forward or even shift careers or work in a company that is more value aligned with me, or maybe I'll start my own company. Maybe I'm here to bring forth new solutions to old problems that haven't really been solved, but just were given a good Band-Aid. Maybe I'm here to do X, Y, and Z and create new ways of doing management teams, problem solving, helping people work through their problems, their issues, build businesses with new values, new alignments that are aligned to the heart, the body, and the mind in union. This is the way of Spirit Gateways in the 21st Century Liberation Roadmap. All of the courses, programs, and trainings being created for you to break through from separation from your true self, living in grief, dealing with undealt with yearnings and angers, and coming into the source, the power within you that is an anchored power, not a power to hurt or abuse or to hurt another, but also not holding back and being so fluffed out in your process of getting to know who you are that you're taking time each day to implement and direct your masculine power, your masculine thinking into creative outcomes. And paying attention to not splitting off from yourself so that you are bypassing your grief. As I shared earlier, your grief is passed to you, and the male burden comes from taking on its own perception of how it needs to take on everything and take care of everything while avoiding, denying, ignoring, and shutting off from oneself. It is a form of being a martyr. And as we see the illness of male energy living in separation from its true self, fight on the planet to insert its way of being like an injection into our mind, we realize that we can't let this continue. So it's really significantly important that you choose, you take the moment each day to honor who you are and how you're different than your lineage, as you also honor the very best qualities that were handed down and taught to you through your male lineage. Whether you are going through your awakening and realizing how you were told not to be true to the voice within you, or to even reacclimate by rediscovering your true sexual energies within inside of yourself, whether you are facing this each day, facing how you choose to interrelate with your partner. Are you choosing to keep your heart shut down in order to not have to feel your own pain? Are you choosing to put your own stuff out onto others or into the world? Are you choosing to take a stance of anger against something that threatens your own identification of who you are? Are you willing to let go of your identification? Are you willing to go through the grief, the spiritual process that awakens you to you being more than identification with a belief system, having to be a particular way, to think that you know more than someone else, that you can actually tell somebody else what to do instead of supporting them to go deep within and finding their own answer of what's best for them? How does the old grief mail system affect you? How does the life force energy within you want to move you into a new way of taking life into your heart instead of separating from it? I'd like to invite you to come up with a few different, maybe 2 or 3, possibly 4 moments in your childhood, your teen years, your young adulthood, where you took on the thought that you couldn't do something, that you chose to divert the inner voice within you, saying do it differently, take the risk, take the chance to be judged. Are you willing to see those moments in your earlier life, or if you're a teen or a young man right now, to do this for present time? Are you being true to you right now? Develop a part of you that receives the you that wants to bust through and break through the box, the container that you're putting yourself into to live. Give yourself the chance to speak it, to write it in prose, poetry, a song. Give yourself a voice and talk to yourself in the mirror. To talk to the source of life that is in you, waiting to be really listened to, so that you can do it a different way. Pay attention to not losing yourself to the needs of broken, wounded men and women. Pay attention to not getting into the deep, dark hole of fulfilling your mother's unfulfilled needs. Pay attention to not taking on her grief. Pay attention to not living out and living in your father's expectations of how you're supposed to be because he couldn't meet his own goals, or that possibly he met his own goals at the expense of his own self and wants you to do it the same way. I want to invite you to create a time each day this week, even for 10 minutes, to write out a new plan of action for how you're going to give yourself the opportunity to find your truth voice and to live it. And by living in that truth voice and seeing things not through the eyes of your ancestry and their grief patterns and their loss patterns and their devastation patterns and their hopelessness patterns, or their attachments to success and their identity to that success or the losses, to write out a new plan for you. And then each day to write with yourself, to listen to the you that has the solution, that has a new blueprint. And that new you is who I'm inviting to the Spirit Gateway's 21st Century Liberation Roadmap courses and trainings. I want you to thrive and to decide that you want through the portal from separation from yourself into really living and being you so that you can really succeed being all that you came here to be. Holding you in deep love, holding you in deep honor of all that you truly are, and supporting you into being the full expression and anchored manifestation of you as a new masculine in this world. We need you. Sending you all my love, welcoming you into the Spirit Gateways community. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Ayana Lehi.